Good evening.
Okay, we
Welcome
are.
to. Thank you, Amber. Good evening and welcome to the Harbor Coastal Zone Commission April 13 work session. If you're watching at home, you've already figured out one way to watch, but it's available if you have any problems on LMC TV, on a YouTube feed, and also via Zoom. This is a work session, so we will not have applicants present except as listening members. And we have 3 applicant items on tonight. I would like to take them out of order if nobody objects. I want to take 652 Shore Acres first. When we last reviewed 652 Shore Acres at our March meeting, we had outstanding items from Esteban's memo that we got just before the meeting, and we weren't able to digest them in time. I wanted to circle back to that. Esteban, have those all now been dealt with?
Yes, they have, and I have sent a updated approved memo. I think on the 31st of March. So all engineering comments have been satisfied for the project.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, commissioners, has anybody looked at this and have an outstanding question or something else they think they need to know what to do with consistency on this project?
I have one just really small comment, which is I just think we should put that Kellard Sessions memo up on the agenda, I assume. Is there a reason why those memos don't end up sometimes in the materials?
It is currently posted to Novus.
Okay, thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you, Amber. Okay. Do we all think we know what we need to know to vote on consistency for this applicant? I'll tell you that I do. Lisa?
Yes, I'm good.
Seamus?
Yes, for me.
Randy?
I'm good.
And Andrew?
I was good last time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think so. Everybody said they know enough to vote, so I'm going to call the vote. We have a resolution for a clean consistency opinion for 652 Shore Acres, and starting in the order they appear on my screen. Lisa?
Yeah, I vote in favor of it.
And I'm going to vote consistent. Seamus?
Consistent.
Randy?
Me too. Consistent.
And Andrew?
Yes, consistent.
Okay, we have a unanimous vote for the clean consistency resolution. It is unusual. We don't hear from and have never before voted a matter at a work session, but this is an unusual circumstance brought on by a procedural hiccup. I really would like to manage to get every applicant through as time efficiently as we can. The other principle we try to hew to here is that every applicant gets to be the boss of their own destiny. And if they decide that they can change their applicant, we never say it's too late. We never say they can't change it. We never say that they can't improve the application or address one of our concerns. When they're done, when they have the best foot forward, when they've addressed everything they think they can address, we will vote it as expeditiously as we can. I am glad to move this one off our docket. Our next applicant item is, again, I'm going to take them out of order because I think we can move through one very quickly. The Orienta Beach and Yacht Club, 1025 Rushmore. When we last looked at this, we also had some outstanding Kellard Sessions memo items. And so, Esteban, I'm going to grab you again and ask you where we stand on outstanding engineering items.
I was able to review the updated plans. Just as a quick glance, it seems that some of my comments have been addressed. I just need the opportunity to draft up my latest memo and submit it to Amber for the village, but it appears a lot of the comments have been satisfied, and you would have that within this week.
Esteban,
Okay, great.
Yeah, go ahead, Seamus.
Go ahead, Seamus.
Okay. What can you remind me the sequence of materials, because and someone please correct me if I'm wrong. We really don't have anything new from the last meeting from them. I don't believe. I think the only thing that we got was the
That's
Beth
correct.
Evans letter.
I think they when I spoke to the applicant's engineer, he had revised some of his plans, which I think he submitted on the 31st, Amber, if I'm not mistaken. I know there was updated.
So I reached out to the applicant who confirmed that they do not have any new materials since the last meeting. That they have not submitted any new.
You may want to double check if that applicant has submitted, because I think I've gotten revised plans. It could have been from the applicant, but I was under the impression that they had submitted some new material. So may want to reach out to them again and just double check, because I do have updated plans from the last meeting that I received from the applicant.
Yeah, which we at least we don't have. I have at best I guess some confusion, at worst maybe some concerns just about the flow of information here, because I think that there's a Kellard Sessions memo that I think was dated the St. Patrick's Day, the last meeting, I think, that had a bunch of open items, and then I just didn't see anything from the applicant, so I wasn't sure how any of that could have been addressed. There must be some information flow that's not coming across to everyone.
I am.
And then,
Continue. Pardon.
And I'll just finish quickly, or at least for now anyway, which is I also think it will be helpful to get, Esteban, your thoughts as far in advance of the meeting as possible. I can anticipate a situation where you still have some open items in that memo, and then the applicant comes to our meeting, and there's open items coming into the meeting which are hard to resolve during the meeting usually, in my opinion.
Understood. I can have a memo within the next day or so, so it gives you ample time to review any outstanding items.
Thank you, Esteban. Okay, so Seamus, you mentioned that there was a new opinion letter. I've seen two versions. I think they resubmitted it with a few small changes. One of the discussion items at the last meeting was that we have been very consistent in needing a wetland scientist to be the person who opines on the impact of disturbed buffer on the wetlands that buffer protects. They now have somebody who has the credentials we've come to expect, giving us an opinion, and we can all read it and see what we think of it. But that item has been checked off. We have it in the file. We can all look at it and decide what we think of it. I don't know of anything else that I need to see on this application that we don't already have. Anybody else? Okay, that one may wrap speedily also. Our third applicant item is 1165 Grecian. I guess so. This was moved from the March meeting to the April meeting, if I recall correctly, because the county permit had not yet issued. Now, we've made clear that since the county's lens of analysis is different than ours, that's neither a holdup for us where we're treating it as though that will issue, nor does it bind our analysis. They just bring a different lens to it. They have different factors and different considerations. But like I said, if an applicant thinks that they put a better foot forward by having a different piece of paper, an additional box checked, we don't tell them no. So if they want to move it because they're waiting for that and don't have it, that's fine. If they don't and the applicant wants to go forward next Wednesday, that's fine too. I can't speak for anybody else's vote. I've made very clear that I'm not conditioning my vote on a county permit. But if somebody feels differently, the applicant should probably know that. And if we're going to tell them they're incomplete without it, they should probably know that.
Yeah, I have a couple items, but let me just comment just on that at the moment. I think that in one of the latest, maybe the latest discussions from the applicant, they really kind of pointed to that Westchester County Department of Health permit as sort of validating the plan here, and pointing to, Westchester Department of Health wouldn't accept a septic system that didn't meet certain environmental and otherwise, kind of criteria to make it a successful part of the project, appropriate part of the project. So I do think that having that permit in hand would be useful along those lines, because they're looking to it as validation, yet I believe that the project has it yet. This is another one where I don't think we have any new materials posted since the last meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, Seamus. That's useful feedback. If they do need to know if some of the commissioners think that since they've put some weight on it, they need to have it or they are better off having it before they go forward. That is feedback they need to be aware of. And I saw Mr. Joffrey pop up in chat, so I know that they're listening. Okay, so Seamus, you said you had other items on 1165?
I do, yeah. Would you like me to run through them? Just two.
Please.
So one is, do we know if Mazer is going to attend the meeting? I think we've, asked each month as they've adjourned for that, but I don't know that they've ever confirmed.
They did confirm the last meeting, which was
Okay.
adjourned. I've reached out to both contacts there with an email. I haven't heard back, so I'll need to circle back. This was earlier this week, so I'll just circle back with them to make sure, to confirm that they've received that.
Right. I think that'd be really helpful, because I think that there's, some difference of opinion between the couple of different memos that we've gotten, perhaps. And then
I'll do it right now.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank
And
you.
then the other item that I had is back to Esteban. So I was trying to trace through where we were at here. I believe the latest Kellard Sessions memo that we have, but would like to confirm, is from November 16th, 2020, where there was still at least one issue related to submerged pipe network or elevations. Also, just for good order, I believe that if that's the latest Kellard Sessions memo, it's dated November 16th. But the latest SWIP, I believe, or the last updates were 12/29/2020. That may have been, just from looking through, that may have been responsive to that Kellard Sessions memo, but I don't know. And it'd be nice, again, with as much lead time as possible to the meeting, to get an update, Esteban, from you guys, just on whether there's anything open on the very latest SWIP. We did have a kind of citizen comment on the SWIP here as well. But correct me, please, if those dates and that sequence is off.
No, that is all correct. There's another memo that I will be generating for this applicant this week as well. So you'll receive that as well.
Okay, it would help to have that with as much lead time as possible. I think the other ones are fairly complete applications. We sort of don't have a lot to talk about anymore. 1165, there always seems to be a lot to talk about. So the sooner we can get it and look at it, I think the happier we'll all be.
Okay.
Okay, so is that all we have to say about 1165? Does anybody else have any completeness file issues? And hearing none, I think we have run our applicant items. We have two administrative items for the evening. The first is the LWRP update, for which I remain totally indebted to Seamus. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's many hands at work here. So thanks to Steve and to Charlie and TJ for and Amber, of course, for where we're at now. So what we have posted to our agenda is an updated red line for people to review. Just marking either the open items or the new items from last month, which is I think how we've sort of agreed, or at least tacitly agreed, to move forward on this. So thanks to Steve and his organization, we now have a working table of contents, so format and functionally. That's much better and allows you to navigate the file better. The one that's posted to the agenda is a PDF because that's what's required, but there's a Microsoft Word document. So if anyone wants that, I'm happy to pass it along. And then also with TJ and Charlie ran through the open kind of code legal items that had been flagged from where we picked this up. And I think they've all been addressed, they're redlined and updated. So that's all available for your review. I think the next steps, and happy to have any discussion that's that the commission would like to have tonight, but that's available for review. And I think the next couple of steps are to just keep narrowing in on the maps, what we have available, what we've found, which we'll continue to work on. And at some point that'll show up in the red line. And then TJ, I think, is going to put together a memo for us on what the path to this thing actually being finalized and adopted would be. So I think it's some work for us, perhaps a round of public comment, board of trustees. TJ, feel free to jump in, but I know you were going to put that together so we could have the discussion at a later time too.
Yeah, like we said on the call earlier today, that's something I'm going to look into, and I imagine, or I envision it'll just be, a short memo just outlining the steps that the board needs to take to get that adopted, whether it's the commission or the board of trustees. I'm not quite sure. I have to take a look at it, but I do know from past experience, I believe Department of State may be involved, or at least at the initial adopting. So, but I'll outline that all in a memo for you guys.
Yep. And thanks for that, TJ. And then last piece is that a friend of the commission and former longtime member, Doreen Roney, has been in touch with me as well and provided really a wealth of information just on the history that I didn't have on where we really picked up from. And so I have a number of emails and a lot of information from her that I just need to go through, inventory, get it into our issues list, see which of it needs to be addressed and incorporate that, fold that in. And so that's the update.
Thank you very much. Questions? No. We have one more administrative item on the evening's agenda. There's a small hole in our jurisdiction that we need to, or a gray area that we need to have a practice for how to handle as between us and planning. In cases of, I think it's code 240. I'm going to miscite the provision, Amber. 245.
So it should be 245, section 2.
2.
40-5.
240-5-2. There are items that maybe, for example, just a change of use and below a square footage threshold that but that are not clearly exempt from our review, but that may not also pick up any of our policies. And we need to sort of figure out how those should be handled if we want to see them all, which sounds burdensome since some of them will be very minor. And my thinking was that we should just communicate to planning what we want to see, and subject to what the rest of you think, I think we want to see it. If it is merely a change of use and won't affect the outside of the structure, I think we only really, Amber, you look
If I
like you're
could
trying to
just
talk.
quickly interject for those of you who are trying to pull it up, it's actually section II, and out of context, it looks like Roman numerals 2. But that makes a little more sense. So if you're trying to pull it up in the code, it's section II.
I think, Amber, can you screen share it?
Sure. Give me one moment.
There it is. Construction, expansion, or reuse of a non-residential structure not requiring change in zoning or a use variance involving less than 8,000 square feet of gross floor area in the village's general commercial C1 and central commercial C2 districts. So Amber or Amy, this is the definition of the exemption, or is the...
Yeah, Amber, I think I was just going to suggest if you scroll to the top at the beginning of the section, it explains this is the definition for actions. And these are actions that are typically not required to go through coastal review, I believe is how it's worded.
Right.
Yeah. So the donut hole is the stuff that does not fit below the square footage. If it is, in theory, anything that's over 8,000 square feet could come before us essentially for any reason. And I don't think that necessarily is a good use of our time. This arose in the context of the old New York Sports Club in C2, and apparently it's just a change of use. It's not obvious to me that it would affect anything that would be any of our concerns anyway. They're not changing how they use stormwater. They're not getting any closer to wetland, et cetera. I would think that where something fits within that definition of II, except that it's over 8,000 square feet, we would want to see it if and only if, and if it's not, changing the outside, changing the height or mass of the building, which would raise, other concerns. We would want to see it only if it affects water dependent use. In which case it would touch on the first several items in our policies.
Amber, can you go back down to I, please? Thank you.
You know what? Scratch that. As I read it, that's wrong. If it involves construction or expansion, we're going to want to see it. I'm thinking about this in terms of what we know is coming. There's one building that is over 8,000 square feet, but which is merely a change of use. I don't think we need to see merely a change of use unless it impacts water dependent use.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this would be this is some less than 8,000. 8,000 is still a big number, and that construction or expansion or reuse could have an impact on the harbor. I think that's maybe something that should at least get a look from Harbor Coastal.
Okay, other views?
No, I'm of the same mind.
Lisa, Randy?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's so. I think we've got a majority for the proposition that if it affects a building over 8,000 square feet, we at least want to look at it. So planning should be advised. We don't really think there's a donut hole there. It should come to us for consistency. If it really doesn't touch on any of our policies, we will turn that around real quick. But 8,000, as Andrew said, is a big number. Okay. Trust the code the way it's written. So
it says less than 8,000, not greater than 8,000.
no, right. That's the exemption is less than 8,000.
If it's over 8,000,
a building
it's
that's
not exempt.
Right.
if it's in C1 or C2 and it's less than 8,000 and it doesn't require any variances or changes in zoning, it's exempt and we never see it. If it's over 8,000, even if it's just a change in use,
Right.
doesn't require any variances or anything, even
Right.
if they're just changing the use, comes before us.
Right. My point was that if it's 7,000 or 7,500, that's still a pretty big space. And maybe that's something that we should look at. You know, maybe if it was 2,500, if it was less than 3,000, it could not require a look. But
we can't mandate that without a change in the code.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we would need to change the code to mandate that something less than 8,000 come before us if it doesn't otherwise need a zoning variance or use variance. We can always tell planning if it touches on certain things, we would want to see it, but that's advisory at that point. If it's over 8,000, they don't fall within the exemption of -5II, and it sounds to me like we're mostly saying that we want to see it. Right. So, okay, I think the guidance to planning then, Amber, is that if it would fit within II, but it is doesn't fit II by reason of being over 8,000 square feet, that's an awfully big piece of property, and we want to take a look at it.
All right.
Okay, and we have run through our administrative. Andrew, there's a potential item for the meeting agenda for Wednesday.
Yes. We discussed at the last meeting. Brewers Safe Harbors now has agreed to underwrite the cost and maintain a new debris net underneath the Mamaroneck Avenue Bridge. I think we just want to, Charlie had mentioned that that was permissible within our authority. The direction should come from Frank Tevolaci, the building inspector. But I think just to make this whole, we should put that on the agenda and formally vote on allowing Safe Harbor Marina, formerly Brewers, to, at their own expense, purchase a debris net and maintain it. And of course, there's some environmental considerations. We don't want a net that's so small that it'll be catching fish and disturbing wildlife. But we can have some kind of supervision or some kind of input as to what they end up, or perhaps the building department can have some type of input as to what they ultimately choose before they purchase it. Does that make sense?
Well, okay. Well, that's an item that we need to talk about. I want to. I'm positive on them keeping stuff out of the harbor, but I also want to think about the environmental impact of that. So who's the right person on staff to advise us about how we make sure that what they put up isn't environmentally damaging? Is that probably that's Sven. As I'm thinking about it, I don't want to not touch the base on the environmental impact. That's not a thing that we gloss. So.
Yes, Sven, I think would be a good. As a matter of fact, we can ask him sooner rather than later, so he can be prepared for the next meeting. Maybe he can do some research
What is it that we're asking him to opine on?
You just muted yourself, Andrew. So what we need to know is if Safe Harbor, formerly Brewers, puts up a debris net at the mouth of the harbor, at the head of the harbor, the junction of the harbor and the river. What kind of debris net would avoid an unwanted environmental impact while still preventing trash from moving from the river into the harbor? That's the question. What if we were to allow them to put up a net at their cost to restrain debris from the river from flowing into the harbor? What sort of net would avoid an unwanted environmental impact?
Procedurally, what is happening here? Should they be applying for something, or how is this coming to us?
This is coming to us as a, and we've discussed this maybe 6 months ago or a year ago. I think a concerned citizen had asked about the debris net, and we discussed it. I don't really recall what we discussed. We all thought it was a good idea. We tried to contact various offices in the Village of America to find out what happened to the debris net. We think it was destroyed in a storm, and perhaps it got clogged and just became too much of a resistance when the Mamaroneck rivers really started to flow. So the net that we had is gone. Brewers brought it up again, and they offered to make it easier because I know the village, and we all know the village is a little bit is cutting back on overtime and time. Since the original net couldn't be found, and since we want to make it easy on the village, and Brewers is very concerned about the floatables going down the river, they offered to buy it and to maintain it. So that's how it came to a special permit. I mean, debris net is such an esoteric thing. I don't think there's a special permit for a debris net. There was a debris net there before. Again, we could talk to the building department. I don't think that there is a building permit or a special permit for a debris net. This is something more of, I don't know. It's an environmental.
Let me try to jump in here, Andrew, because what I'm thinking about it as, and TJ, we're gonna need your guidance on this. Since this is harbor management, and it's at least at the low end of the scale, a marine structure. And as the permitting authority, I would think that unlike where we're in a consistency mode, and and we sort of have to follow the framework of the policies. As the permitting authority for marine structures, we have a little more freedom to craft something, and this is, in essence, an in-kind, in-place replacement, except that it is funded as almost a public-private partnership. It's a privately funded replacement of a public good that has been a permitted marine structure before, and they're offering to substantially replace the exact same thing that was once there and has been lost due to damage or taken down due to damage and not replaced. So do I have that right, TJ?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I'd have to take a look at the code and sort of unpack the commission's permitting authority and see what happens in this type of situation. Because off the top of my head, I don't know, but it's something I could look into and shoot you an email before the next meeting, just so we have something to talk about.
That would, yeah, and in that instance, all commissioners. So because time is short, we've got 8 days before our meeting. Let's make sure everybody sees it at the same time. We'll think about it. Seamus is trying to steer us on the right path, I think, here procedurally. because we don't like when other people sort of skip steps around us. So we don't want to be the ones that do that. I am very mindful of the value of being expeditious too. It's it's harbor, it's public good. So I want to do it as quickly as possible, but I also don't want to sacrifice staying within the four corners of our authority to do that. If as the permitting authority for the harbor, we can say it used to be there and we can simply okay it being put back because it's the same thing, that would be great. If we may not do that, we need to know that going in, at least in part to explain to all the friends and neighbors that put us here to do this job, why we can't do it quicker.
Just curious, what's the ongoing maintenance requirement with something like this?
You got to take the debris out of the net.
Yeah.
It catches debris. If it works, you have to clean
Right.
it.
Right.
That's probably a weekly or bi-monthly event. Send someone out there in a small dinghy and just pick up the garbage, pick out the garbage.
And is that, I mean, I know this is something they want to do, but is that something that's written into a permit?
Chair, if I can have a second. This is Assistant Building Inspector Dennis Strogan. As for putting the net and the catch-all there, since the Mamaroneck River is navigable, is that a concern for the board? And then I believe there is some form of a permit through the DEC that I've heard of before. So I'd like to, take some time and get back to you of what I've dealt with before and what I've heard.
Okay. Well, that raises, thank you. And that raises another concern that we have to have clear. And if we can't get clarity on it by next meeting, we'll just advance the ball as far as we can. We need to know, TJ, whether it's within our authority, since it's been there before, to say it's in kind, it's in place, we'll let a private party just put it back. Dennis, anything that you can find for us about whether we are now, if it was there before, presumably it's not impermissible even on a navigable waterway. But if it's not permissible, we can't do it again. All right, so I think we know everything we're going to know about that tonight. Hopefully we'll get a lot more information quickly so that we can decide what to do about that. Those are all of the administrative items we had on tonight's agenda, and the thing that we think is coming up for the next one. Is there any other business we need to raise at this work session? Okay,
Chair,
I think we can close this up.
Chair, I would like a couple minutes after the meeting just to catch up.
Sure. You can, I think you have my cell. You can call me. Unless this is whole group, in which case I'm not sure we can. That's subject to public meeting.
So
all right. So I think
let's put it on the public meeting. So last meeting, it was mentioned the New York State Thruway Commission and the property that was on the side of 95 there on Mamaroneck Avenue. I've been in touch with the yard master and the engineer as well. They've put a silt fence in place. They are going to do some other stormwater management, and they're flipping the trap rock in front of the dumping area. So progress has been made. I just wanted to let the board know and everyone else.
Thank you. You know, I should have put that on the agenda for the work session to get an update on that, because that's useful. Several of our local concerned citizens were worried about what was happening with the silt. I know that it's not always the easiest thing to find the right person to fix that. I appreciate your diligence on that. Thank you very much for staying on them.
No problem.
All right. Any other business? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.